Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie, and I'm here with my husband Jim. And we are here on January 7th, the first week of January. And it's kind of crazy today that we actually have a very full house
It's my
here.
birthday.
It is Jim's birthday.
That's right.
We won't say how old, unless you want to say how old.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So it's his birthday. So we had family come in, and we've got our grand pups here. So if you hear dogs in the background, they're playing. And so it might be a little noisy. But guess what? We're still doing our podcast. We're still talking about AI because there's some actually kind of interesting things going on. As a matter of fact, when the family got here and we started talking about the latest things in AI news, we had a really good time talking about some of the stuff that's going to be happening in 2024.
I've spent the last several days actually going through all these different people I follow on YouTube, going through all their different predictions.
Yes.
Everybody's got predictions for 2024. Of course, predictions are almost always wrong.
Mm.
Sometimes you get them right, but if anybody could see the future that clearly, they would be really, really wealthy, I guess.
And not taking their time making predictions.
Exactly. So anyway.
So we're going to start out with regulations. California tends to kind of, lead the way when it comes to putting new stuff out there.
They
there's a senator in California that's introduced a bill to regulate AI systems specifically with like government entities.
That's how they use them. I mean, if you think about it, it's one thing to put a regulation to say how AI in general is going to be regulated, which we're seeing a lot of that stuff, but that's at a federal level. But the state levels, they're concerned about how people are going to be using it that are actually working for state agencies. How do you use generative AI if you work for the driver's license office, or how does the overall AI get integrated into it? So anyway, they're basically saying that they want to make sure that there's some kind of framework as to how they can use it.
Well, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to get together a regulatory committee.
Always. It's got to start with the committee.
Going to be a group of people. They're going to sit around and talk about AI and try to figure out what they're going to do with it. They are explicitly barring the state of California from engaging with any AI service providers that don't meet established benchmarks, which kind of will lead us into something we're going to talk about before we end this podcast today, because there are different AI providers out there, and they don't all play by the same rules.
Yeah, the problem with these so-called benchmarks is that implies that there's only going to be a few winners. It's easier to regulate if you don't have a lot of people doing it.
Right.
But if you have a lot of people doing it, then it gets really, really difficult to regulate.
The number one thing that the senator says is that he wants to make sure that if you're a state agency, that you're using ethical guidelines and non-discrimination standards. It's that bias thing that everyone's been talking about ever since the very beginning of AI hit, a year or so ago when it really got into the news, was how it's biased.
And you remember 6 months ago, we had about 80 teachers in a classroom, and the first thing that came up was bias. And the first question we asked was, define bias.
And they could not define it.
Not clearly. The problem with it is if you can't regulate it, if you can't articulate it. And bias is a subtle thing. It's one of those, what's it saying? I'll know it when I see it. It's one of those things where that's almost how everyone answered. Well, it's kind of this, well, I know it when I see it. Well, you can know it when you see it, but it's really difficult to regulate something in advance.
I like what you just said. You can't regulate it if you can't define it.
Yeah. Anyway, so California is trying to figure that out, and whether or not they will, who knows?
Well, California, now let's talk federal.
Yes. We're interested in this one for more than one reason.
Yes. Right now, we have a thing that is like the Digital Equity Act. It happened in 2021.
That's correct.
It's something that in a technology department you had to worry about. It's basically a federal law about digital literacy and equality for, access to technology.
Well, a lot of that Digital Equity Act was putting money into infrastructure.
Broadband.
Infrastructure. Of course, Atlanta, we had already been working on infrastructure. We were ahead of them.
Yes.
So we used some of that funding, but not a lot, because we had already gotten some grants to build fiber to Llano, to the schools, that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, they're talking about amending that. They're talking about adding something to it specifically concerning artificial intelligence.
I really think it's important that they do that. You and I talk about this a lot when we give presentations at conferences and things. We talk about if the kids aren't going to, if the schools don't teach them digital literacy, then no one will.
Right. AI literacy
And
now needs to
AI
be tied
is
into that.
something that should be added to that. We've been doing, you used to teach digital literacy, so you
Yes.
know what it is, you know
Yes.
how to teach it, but AI is a whole different thing that people need. The kids need to understand what it is, what its limitations are, what it can and can't do.
Well, I think what's happening, and I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and I follow a lot of people that talk about AI in education. And the number one sector of education they talk about is college. They talk about AI in college level, what they're doing with AI in their assignments. They're
Usually has something to do with plagiarism to
they,
start with and
but they
cheating.
have finally
Yes.
decided, most of them have decided at the college level that they're not going to stop it. Therefore, they're going to change the way that they give assignments. They're changing the way that they teach. They're really even encouraging students to use AI and then turn in the information, even share the thread with the professor or the TA as to how they're
Cite your sources.
Cite your sources. And I see that all the time in the college level, but the K-12 level, unless I'm just not following the right people, it doesn't get talked about.
There's not near as many conversations.
When it does
We're
get
hoping that
talked
changes.
about, it's talked about in, well, we're going to wait and see. We're going to wait and see. And I think if we don't have something in place like the Digital Literacy Act that they're talking about amending, you're going to have kids leaving, especially smaller schools,
Yep.
going to a college
and not knowing how to use it properly without getting in trouble.
Correct. So I think it's a really good thing. I hope that when this passes, which I think they're looking at it over the holidays, they're looking at it now.
They're supposed to be looking at it now. It was actually sponsored by Republicans and Democrats, so it's bipartisan. There's not a single. What I'm hoping is they'll amend the Digital Equity Act to add this. And of course, we have our own selfish. We like to train people on that, so we would love people to hire us to come in and train people to do that.
So,
but at the end of the day, no matter who's doing the training, it is important, and I think it's important to do it well. We've been to a lot of conferences and stuff, and we've seen seminars about it.
I always go in and see what everybody else is saying.
Some
if
of
it
the
says
people
AI, I'll go sit in the back and go.
Yeah, and we've been disappointed in some of the people doing those trainings because basically they Googled a few things. It's obvious. Then they threw together some slides. It needs to be a little more comfortable. You need to know how to use the stuff and not just chat GPT.
Well, I think it's that they don't know the depth. That they know like a wide range of what it might be.
A lot of breadth, not depth.
But it's the depth. I'll never forget there was somebody who talked about how we've had artificial intelligence ever since Alexa came out.
Which is a form of machine learning, no argument, but
it's not
the same as it's not large language models.
Yeah.
It's not the stuff because that's when I was first doing the chatbot for Atlanta ISD, I was doing that chatbot using a similar type technology as Siri or whatever. And I switched when I was introduced to large language models, and I abandoned that other path because they're so different. It's not everybody is quite as obsessed with it as I am, so maybe they're not taking the time to learn the depth, but I think they possibly should. Anyway, education is important. So let's move from regulations over to everyday
cool
stuff. Cool stuff. And we're at the beginning of the year. I think we're going to see a lot, like the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas is happening pretty quick. And there's lots and lots of people. As a matter of fact, I read an article today talking about how that was going to be literally inundated with AI. It's going to be everywhere. And unfortunately, people are just like they call Siri AI, which it's really not yet, not the type we're talking about. I think you're going to see a lot of people using it in their booth just because they need to have it in their booth that really haven't got a good implementation of it. And this may be a case of it, but it sounded cool, so I got the headline, so I'll let you read the headline.
It's about LGs, which, televisions. In 2024, they're supposed to be putting a bigger focus on AI processing in their actual televisions.
Yeah, look at the size of that TV.
It is huge.
I don't think Rachel's is even that big.
It's going to be 83 inches. It's coming out in an 83-inch size, ultra premium wireless, and they're
It's
just saying
OLED.
it's going to
It's an
be,
OLED. Yeah, organic LED, I think is what that's supposed to stand for.
yeah.
Anyway, it's supposed to, they're doing some things with AI that is interesting. I just can't quite figure out that's why I said I'm not sure this is the type of AI we've been talking about, but they're talking about using AI in the TV to do some of the adjustments on how the TV works.
Well,
Maybe
it's probably going to be really
that's
good
really,
for
it's
gamers.
really not an AI thing that the way we talk about it now. But as I said, people are putting AI into everything. So they're saying that AI is going to
It's in the
use some
processors.
adjust. It's going to have discerning judgment about how the image is delivered and the colors, and that really sounds more like traditional machine learning stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. 83-inch TV. I don't think that would even fit in our living room.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. I don't know how big ours is.
So the other thing that's happening that's kind of cool is
I thought you'd
a
like this one.
a new mind reading AI translates thoughts directly from brain waves without implants.
Yeah, remember years ago when we were playing around with those things you put on your head?
And make the ball
Rachel played with them.
go.
Matthew played with
Hmm.
them.
It's
The
like a
ball.
focus
I mean,
game.
Jared and Rachel, I think, played a game against each other where
Right.
they focus. I don't remember what those things were called, but basically it picked up brain waves and it would use it to control either things on the screen. It was really more of it was kind of picking up not individual thoughts, but it was just kind of your state of mind, kind of like, what do they call those things? It's like
I
a
don't remember.
EEG for your head. I don't remember what it was called. Anyway, they were cool, and we were actually using them as a way we were experimenting with them, if you remember right,
For
at the school
ADHD.
as a way to see if we could work with kids that had ADHD. I still think that got abandoned at the school district much sooner than it should have because I really think it had potential. This is different, though. This is actually trying to figure out how to decode your actual brainwaves. I've seen a lot of these, quite a few of them have implants, things. They're talking about using them for people that have. I saw one the other day where it was typing sentences on the screen for someone who was paralyzed.
Hmm.
And so I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I could do that because my thoughts tend to wander
All over the place.
all over the
But
place.
this is out of a University of Technology in Sydney.
Yes.
So, and it talks about how they're taking raw EEG waves
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to translate them directly into language.
Well, that's what that thing was using before we had, but it wasn't. Well, first of all, that picture's got a lot of little sensors on his
But
head. Ours
it
had like
says
three.
that right now they're at a 40% accuracy.
Yeah,
But you know what?
that's not bad. Especially if you're
If they're
paralyzed,
just
right?
starting out,
You
they're
get.
wanting it to increase to about 90% of an
I,
accuracy,
I could see where.
which if it's at 90%, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, that's the image that I saw. That guy sitting there. I don't think he was actually. I don't think he's actually paralyzed. I think he was just an experimenter. But he was typing those sentences that you see on the screen behind him. It's a YouTube video, and he was typing the sentences, and they call it Brain GPT.
Hmm.
And what he was thinking was getting typed. I think he even did corrections too.
So he was thinking about the words
Yes, he was thinking of the
and it was
sentence.
typing the words.
Yes, I don't know how well it worked, but it looked really cool.
Kind of creepy.
Yeah, a little creepy too, because somebody's going to use that for things they shouldn't.
Speaking of kind of creepy, what
This,
about,
I don't know if this is creepy. I think this is kind
well,
of cool, but
you know, it's about Elvis.
yeah, a
Anything about Elvis is
holographic
cool.
AI. They're going to. I think London is the first place they're going to have this, and they're talking about. I'm assuming the people who own the rights to Elvis are behind all this, but they're talking about a AI based holographic Elvis that can get on the stage and sing. You're going to see more of this stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
This is not going anywhere. It's going to be expensive to put this on, but we play. Remember again, we played around with holographic type stuff when you had your class at the middle school.
Yes.
We had a holographic Jared.
Yes.
That was the greeter for your.
A little kid stood there and talked to him for
He
at
did.
least 15 minutes.
He got upset with Jared because
because
Jared
he
wasn't
wouldn't
answering.
change the answer.
If we had AI like we have
AI,
now,
you could change the answer.
Jared could have been interactive
Absolutely.
instead of what he is now.
Absolutely.
But I think this is kind of cool. Some people think that once someone's gone, maybe they should stay gone, but I don't think that's going to happen. You're going to see more of this stuff. And
Yeah.
there's been so many Elvis impersonators in the world. I'm not surprised that Elvis was the one they picked first. So
Well, I mean,
Holographic
because they had,
Elvis.
the movie, the Elvis movie, it was Oscar
That
nominated.
was a
It
pretty good.
got
I thought that
Golden
was a pretty
Globe
good movie.
winning. It was a good movie.
Oh, I don't know how accurate it was
I don't either,
because
but
they,
it was well done.
well, they didn't show Elvis's manager
Manager in
in
a
a
very
very
good light.
positive light.
Right, right.
So maybe the movie was accurate, maybe it wasn't, but it was
But
a good movie.
right, but they're saying that now that that's such, Elvis is making a comeback because of the movie, and now's a great time to, get this done,
Well,
and therefore they can make some money on
think
it.
about how much material they have to use to train the AIs with. There's a lot of Elvis stuff out there.
Yes.
There are videos, there's movies, there's recordings of his songs. I'm sure building this was probably not horribly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're also talking about an ABBA. Was it ABBA or ABBA?
ABBA.
Remember that ABBA?
ABBA.
It looks like they might be talking about that
SOS.
as
ABBA,
well.
the song, famous.
Yeah, they're
SOS.
they're kind of talking about that one as well too. They were like one of the biggest hits.
It was a Swedish band.
They had more hits than almost anyone in history. I think they were big. I remember them when we
Yes.
were young. So anyway,
Okay, now comes the scary part.
well,
I don't know if it's scary.
creepy is.
We knew it was coming.
Everybody knows it's
Well,
coming.
it's been there for a long time.
Yes.
Now it's just people are talking about it.
Well, and you've got a new tool for people to use, and I like the acronyms because if you go, you don't feel right because I was looking for this material because at the school district I have to think about this stuff because normally we tell people don't bother trying to block AI, that it's not going to do you any good.
Yeah.
But we're required by law to try to keep certain things out. Hopefully the ones
it's like
that are
protection, a child protection kind of thing.
well at the first level, like this particular one, the acronym is NSFW, not suitable for work. And this particular site, because it's a NSFW art generator, they call that art.
Okay.
.ai. This my content filter will probably block just because it automatically looks for certain words like nude
or erotic.
Or erotic. It'll probably block this automatically because this is a website that you go to that can generate nude art. This one is pretty racy. Talks about unleashing your wildest fantasies.
Hyper realistic
AI nude generator. I noticed that every picture it shows up there is a picture of a woman. But anyway, they are supposedly have gotten very, very realistic, hyper realistic stuff. And they're allowing you to generate this stuff that some people call them uncensored because like you can't generate this stuff in DALL-E. You can't generate it Midjourney.
Correct.
Llama 2, which is the open source model from Meta, may generate it, but it violates the terms of service. If you get caught doing it with theirs, then they can come after you in the court. But the websites that allow you to do this, there was two others I was going to talk about, but because I saw an article about them this morning, but I forgot which ones they were. I feel weird going and typing in,
how can I generate
AI
that
nude
doesn't have
art?
clothes on?
Yeah, porn, and I don't want to type that stuff. But there's a couple of somebody wrote an article about it in Medium. Then I read a lot of Medium articles about how to maybe they got their article pulled because I couldn't find it again. But I also had not tried the NSFW. I actually Googled that one because I was trying to figure out how to. There was a way. I knew there was a way they were disguising it. People. It's sort of like the way those strip clubs used to do things with your credit card, where
yes.
Not that I know that, but the credit cards were not.
It would hit your credit card statement as something totally different. The word, the name of the company.
Yes, there was a friend of yours that had that. Anyway,
yes.
It wasn't me. But anyway, I think NSFW is a way for them to say that so you can search for it without saying porn.
Okay.
All that other stuff. So you're probably going to see that term a lot.
So where's this going?
Well, it starts out here. And again, this is the easy part. This is the part where you say, okay, I can block this because my content filter at school is probably going to pick this up because it's a website. The problem becomes when there was a couple of different, actually, I think I read that Hugging Face, has all these language models you can download. Jared and I have been playing around with downloading them through Olama, using Olama to download the different models. But either way, you download these models and you can use them locally. Well, some of the models aren't that big, and kids already have good graphics card if they're
Oh,
gamers.
yeah.
So they got their NVIDIA GPU, so they can download if they've got any technical skill at all. They can download these models and run them locally. Well, these models, I think they're all based on Stable Diffusion, which is a image generating model, but a lot of them are not that large. You download them, and now you can generate them locally. I can't
And if
block
you can
those.
generate them locally, you cannot block them.
Because they can do it at home. They're going to
Yes.
do it at home on their own computer. They're not
They
going to be
could
doing it at
generate their
school.
own videos. They
The
could generate
problem
their own
is,
AI images.
what concerns me is that when you do those and you want to get a stable image, I can take a picture of someone
Yes.
and I can use it. Now, it doesn't tend to generate an exact copy of it. It's not like a photocopy of it, but it uses that as a base to generate images off of, which means there's going to be some resemblance. What I'm concerned about is there becomes a cottage industry for these kind of techie types at the schools to generate nude images on their own PCs to share with their friends.
Yes.
Now,
And then they're breaking all sorts of laws.
well, if they start
But
sharing them through,
are they?
well,
And that's why
if they're
these
underage,
regulations,
maybe.
because if you take and it's a likeness and it is 100% AI generated, then did you really take and share a photo of some person with your friend?
Right, since they're not a real person. I
Since
think
it's
that's
not
already
a
been
real
argued once
person.
in court.
So but has it been decided?
I don't know, but you think about it, because it's not a real person, can you be charged with possession of pornography?
Right, which is what happens now. As a previous administrator,
Yeah.
whenever I would run into a student that had shared a picture of the girlfriend that he
Yeah.
shouldn't have had to begin with,
Yes.
then, if the girlfriend was underage, then he was in trouble for distributing porn.
Yes.
So a lot of these rules and regulations really need to be
I don't know how
thought about
I don't know how
and
you do 'em.
discussed. I mean, it's never going to be perfect, but it has to come to the table. It has to be discussed. And that's something you showed me the other day. We have about 5 minutes left. You showed me the other day an image of Biden and Trump.
Yeah, it was actually a little short video. They were playing a video game against each other.
They were playing a video game against each other that was AI generated.
Yes.
And it was so realistic.
It looked pretty good.
That you...
Yeah, I know. That's going to be a problem. And the funny thing is, this problem kind of started a long time ago. I remember probably 15 years ago, I had to do a presentation for the school board to explain to them how a kid got on a game that had topless animated volleyball. And it was females playing volleyball with no top, but they were completely animated. Now, in those days, they truly looked animated.
Well,
but now we've progressed forward, because there was nothing. It was difficult to even say. I mean, you just tell a kid don't do that, but there was no law that says he can't do that.
Right.
We were just having. They wanted to understand how he got to that gaming site. It was kind of buried in the back of a gaming site, which could happen here. You could have one of these gaming sites that has like 5,000 of these really terrible games on it that the kids will play on, and buried, 3 layers deep is an AI generator, because a lot of times the content filters don't pick those up.
So, I mean, whenever I was doing digital literacy and all of that stuff, I actually had a whole lesson that we did about images. And this was photography, literally photography.
Yes.
And how you could put the camera at a certain place or something behind the person at a certain thing. I mean, one of the presidents, it was a big thing. He was in front of like a large military plane with the American flag behind him, and all this stuff is staged.
Yes.
The kid digging in the trash, I think it was during Vietnam.
No, that was actually during South Africa, when they were talking about the kids in poverty.
Would put coins. They would throw coins into a trash can and then take all these pictures.
Yes.
Okay. So we've been faking things for a long time.
It was a lot harder then.
And now it's so much easier. And now we have this election that's going to be coming up.
This is going to be a dumpster fire for this year.
It's going to be horrible.
Well, that's why digital literacy is so important, though.
And you just told me something they're going to start possibly doing. They're talking about how now, instead of proving that you're not an AI, or proving that you're AI generated, or watermarking AI generated stuff,
which is tough,
you're going to have to prove it's
human, which is a good approach. I thought it was a couple of companies that are ALG may have been one of them, but it was a couple of different companies that were talking about coming up with a very difficult to remove because watermarking pictures, that's been around for a long time.
Very long time.
So if you put some kind of digital signature in the watermark, that makes it really hard to remove, especially if the photographer never puts the original without that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, when you're removing a watermark, you have an original and then you have the one with the watermark. And so now, since I know what the difference is, the delta, I can remove it. That's one of the ways they remove those things. If you don't have an original without the watermark, then it's a lot more difficult if the watermarking is done well. Now, these are done by people a lot smarter than I am, but the idea being that let's stop trying to prove AI is AI and let's just prove we're human.
Right.
And
well, let's
that's
think about it.
Now,
they do like a verify me thing for all of your IRS stuff and all of it. You have to verify your identity.
Yes.
So now they're saying, let's verify your identity as a human identity.
Yes.
So that then you can say that your work is original.
Yeah, that doesn't help with this stuff, though.
No.
Because people just want to look at this stuff.
And laugh.
That's what worries me about this. What really worries me about the school is the kids are going to start doing this. And first of all, I'm going to have a difficult time blocking it. But if they're generating them at home, it's how they share them that can get me in trouble. Because if they start sharing them by loading them on their Google Drive, it's difficult. I mean, Google used to allow me, I could log into any kid's account, and I could search for things on their account. But now I have to change their password. I don't know. Maybe one of our listeners knows. I don't know if Google has the ability to do a content filter type thing on the contents of Google Drive in an educational account. Because we have a lot of kids in these accounts.
Maybe we need to ask our friend Amy
maybe
to contact somebody at Google Education and find out if they have something like that.
It would be helpful because how they share those images. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on this year. This year is going to be a lot of progress in AI, but there's also going to be a big dumpster fire of fake information out there. That's why the digital literacy is so important, though, because how do you tell the difference? It's a technique. We teach that all the time. There's no one single way to find out if something is AI or not. There's a technique, a process. I think all of it's going to have that.
Yes. Well, we are going to end right now, and let's go back to celebrating your birthday.
Yeah, I didn't have any pie.
You need to go get a piece of pie before you go to bed
late.
Tonight.
I don't know if I need pie before I go. That was really good pie.
Anyway, we thank you guys for listening to AI in Action. My name is Maurie, and I'm here with my husband, Jim, and we hope that you guys have a marvelous rest of the week.